一等しろ。そして僕自身の挑戦だ。この最強の雷切りで第7飛剣雷刀雷切り。最初から分かっている。彼女が強いことも1分もいらない。1秒あれば十分だ。魂を研ぎ澄ませ駆け抜けろ極限の一瞬を。
Imagine living in a world of magic and being able to fight with a weapon created by your own soul, but you feel like you're the only one who doesn't fit in because you don't possess the same magic powers as everyone else. However, you are still the best swordsman that anyone's ever seen. Our story begins with Ikki Kurogane, an aspiring mage knight and flunking Hagen Academy student. Returning to his apartment from jogging, Ikki inadvertently walks in on a half-naked girl, Stella Vermilion, changing in his room. When Ikki sees Stella half-naked, he wants to return the favor by doing the same, but he gets slapped. After the incident, Academy Director Kurano Shinguji summons Ikki and Stella. While being admonished and forced to apologize by Kurano, Ikki learns that Stella, a famous A-rank blazer who is the princess of Vermilion Empire, is his new roommate. When Stella announces a set of house rules, which Ikki objects to, Kurano has them stage a mock battle, with the loser having to obey the winner unconditionally. Ikki accepts despite the disadvantages of his low rank, i.e. being an F-rank blazer, stating that he has to work hard in order to win the 7-star Sword Art Festival. During the mock battle, he demonstrates powerful fighting skills and memorizes Stella's technique, which he uses against her through his technique Blade Steel. As a last resort, Stella activates her noble art, but Ikki counters it with his own noble art, outmaneuvers her attacks, and strikes her, winning the battle but collapsing from exhaustion. Later, Kurano visits Stella and explains that, despite Ikki's strength, he flunked the Academy's evaluations due to his peculiar style. She then recommends her to follow Ikki's style so she can improve. Returning to the apartment, Stella apologizes to Ikki for her behavior. He then reminds her of the deal they made for the loser to obey the winner from now on, and then orders her to be his roommate. Ikki's younger sister, Shizuku, whom he has not seen in 4 years, arrives at Hagen Academy as a new student. In class, Ikki and Stella learn about the selection match for the 7-star Sword Art Festival from their teacher, Yuri Ariki. Afterwards, they meet Shizuku, who surprises them by kissing Ikki directly on the mouth, leading to a duel between Stella and Shizuku over the former's relationship with Ikki. Shizuku tries telling Stella to stay away from her brother, inadvertently revealing that the Kurogane family treated Ikki as if he never existed. The following evening, Shizuku meets her roommate, the effeminate Nagi Alice Arisuin. Meanwhile, Stella asks Ikki about what Shizuku said. He explains to her that he was born without any talent in a family that produced great blazers. As a result, he was neglected by his family and later ran away and got lost in a blizzard, but was rescued by his great-grandfather, Ryoma Kurogane, who encouraged him to believe in himself. Afterwards, he strove to become just like Ryoma and was accepted into the academy, but when the Kurogane family discovered it, they pressured the school, which was under the previous academy director at the time, into creating a set of class requirements which were responsible for Ikki's failing grades until Kurano became the new academy director, though Kurano is also pressured as a result. Ikki then states that his constant harassment will never come to an end. After training with Ikki, Stella tries asking him out on a date, but their conversation gets interrupted by a text message sent by Shizuku asking Ikki to go shopping with her. Stella is shocked when Ikki accepts the proposal and decides to accompany him. During the shopping trip, Ikki has an awkward first meeting with Alice, whose effeminate personality puts him off, but he later praises her for getting Shizuku to open up to other people more. The entire trip is spent with Stella and Shizuku competing to get Ikki's attention, with Shizuku seemingly triumphing every time. As the four split up to use the restrooms, the mall is suddenly taken hostage by a group of armed men led by a blazer named Bisho, who demands a large ransom in exchange for the release of the hostages. Kurano authorizes Ikki, Stella, Shizuku, and Alice to use their devices to attack the assailants. When Stella intervenes, Bisho subdues her with his device, Judgment Ring, and then forces her to undress in exchange for the freedom of the hostages. Shizuku takes advantage of the gunman's distraction to protect herself, Stella, and the hostages with a wall of water, while Ikki slices Bisho's left arm off to prevent him from using Judgment Ring. When the gunmen retaliate, another blazer, Shizuya Kirihara, arrives and subdues them. Afterwards, Kirihara reveals that Ikki had a match against him but ran away, and says that he will be Ikki's first opponent. During the selection match, Stella, Shizuku, and Alice easily defeat their opponents. Meanwhile, Ikki begins studying Kirihara's noble art, which renders him invisible and makes it difficult to even detect him using the other senses. Ikki meets up with Alice and confides in her about his match against Kirihara. During the previous school year, when the Kurogane family still had influence over the Academy's superiors, Kirihara had been harassing him with his device, and Ikki refused to fight back, believing it would be used as an excuse to expel him. In the next day's match, Kirihara starts off by activating his noble art, which covers the battlefield in an illusory forest. At first, Ikki is able to deduce Kirihara's location by observing the visible arrows he fires, but Kirihara uses a new improved technique he developed, which also allows his arrows to become invisible, injuring Ikki. Kirihara ridicules Ikki by saying that he must win the festival in order to graduate. Enraged, Stella stands up for Ikki and tells him to continue fighting. Using everything he learned about Kirihara's attacks, a rejuvenated Ikki pinpoints his location with his noble art and defeats him, and collapses from exhaustion. At the hospital, Ikki is met by Stella and he confesses his feelings for her. Initially embarrassed by the confession, she then kisses his cheek. The two then promise to meet and fight each other in the final match of the festival. 2 weeks have passed since Ikki's battle with Kirihara. Ikki has progressed through the following matches with ease, quickly losing his school nickname of the worst one and gaining the new nickname of another one and becoming popular with the other students, volunteering to mentor them in perfecting their strength using what he learned about swordsmanship. However, Stella becomes frustrated when Ikki isn't paying enough attention to her during the time since they became a couple. Ikki later takes her, Shizuku, Alice, and his followers to the local swimming pool for more training. There, Shizuku and Alice discuss about the former's affections towards Ikki, despite their biological relation. Meanwhile, after talking about her and Ikki's relationship to classmate Kagami Kusakabe, Stella and Ikki get into a fight after she reveals her misinterpretation that Ikki no longer likes her, which he quickly denies. After the two cool down and settle out their problem, Ikki suggests they both blurt out what they want to do right now with each other, and Stella agrees. When the two both want to kiss, they happily do so. On the way back, Ikki and Stella are informed that their next opponents are members from the student council. As Ikki and Stella continue to make progress in the selection matches, Ikki notices he is being stalked by a female student who eventually identifies herself as Ayase Ayatsuji, the daughter of Kaito Ayatsuji, a famous swordsman. She had been hoping to ask Ikki to help her improve her swordsmanship, but was unable to approach him directly because of her fear of men, androphobia. He agrees to help her, to the surprise of both Stella and Shizuku. During training, he deduces that Ayase's problem lies in her imitation of her father's style, which is impossible to accomplish. He then proposes that since she is now fully dedicated to imitating her father's style and cannot utilize any other technique, she must adjust her position by understanding her anatomy. With this in mind, Ayase is able to land a hit on Ikki with ease. While accompanying Ikki and Ayase home, Stella asks Shizuku if she is jealous of Ayase, and she replies that she isn't, then hopes that Stella will always take care of Ikki and never betray him. One night, while having dinner with Ayase, Ikki and Stella meet Kurado Kurashiki, a blazer who knows Ayase and despises swordsmen. He begins harassing Ayase and then injures an unresisting Ikki when he stands up for her. Afterwards, the trio is approached by Utaka Misogi and Kanada Todokubara, members of the Hagen Academy Student Council, who commend Ikki for not retaliating against Kurado. As they walk back home, Ikki and Ayase are informed that their next festival opponents will be each other. The following night, Ikki meets up with Ayase on the school rooftop at her request. Ayase and Ikki meet up on the rooftop, only for Ayase to jump off, prompting Ikki to use his noble art to save her. Ayase reveals that she planned to prevent Ikki from using his abilities during the match, since he can only use it once every 24 hours. Now weak and exhausted, Ikki somehow makes it back to his room where Stella, who is having a perverted dream, awakens and helps Ikki. Now, Ikki has to fight Ayase without his abilities and on a battlefield rigged with traps that Ayase set. However, Ikki, who has learned why Ayase is so determined, still wants to help her regain her pride. Despite sustaining serious damage, Ikki is not only able to see through and defeat Ayase's technique to win, but also to break through to her and offer his help so that she could regain what she has lost. Accompanied by Stella and Ayase, Ikki goes to Ayase's family dojo and challenges Kurashiki to a duel to reclaim the dojo. As the fight progresses, Ikki takes some damage from Kurashiki's Orochimaru, reminding Ayase of her father's fight with Kurashiki, which hurts her internally. When Ayase wants to stop the fight, Stella stops Ayase, telling her that she won't be able to get the dojo back if she does, and that Ikki is actually having fun and enjoying the fight, just like her father did. Ayase then realizes that the apology her father gave at the end of the fight was to Kurashiki for not being able to execute his final move and collapsing midway in the match. Using Ayase's father's secret technique himself, Ikki wins the match and restores the dojo and the Ayatsuji Ito style to Ayase. Later, Ayase confesses her foul play to the school and her father regains consciousness in the hospital. The director sends Ikki and Stella to a training camp. Stella is initially excited, believing she now gets to spend some time alone with Ikki, but it turns out they were sent to help the student council with cleaning up the training field. After cleaning, Stella insists in climbing up the mountains to view the waterfall with Ikki despite having a fever. Caught in a sudden storm, they take refuge in an abandoned lodge, and Stella's soaked clothing leads to an embarrassing situation to stripping her. Later, they're attacked by a puppet user blazer who controls golems, but the attack is foiled by the student council members, while student council president Toka Todo herself deals with the blazer. Meanwhile, Shizuku returns to Kurogane Mansion to face her father and learns that her next opponent will be Toka Todo. Shizuka versus Student Council President Toka Todo! Ikki and Stella are worried because they've seen Toka's power for themselves. Shizuka is determined to win to prove that she's strong enough to stand beside her brother against everyone, especially the Kurogane family, but Toka is calm and collected. As the battle progresses, Shizuka realizes that Toda is faster and stronger than her, so she opts for a defensive weapon and long-range water/ice attacks. She covers the arena in ice to give herself a terrain advantage, but Toka is able to see through her attacks. When Toka demonstrates the ability to instantly close the gap with her trackless step, Shizuka fills the arena with a thick mist to use her final attack against Toka, but unfortunately loses the match to Toka's attack. The Ethics Committee, which is controlled by the Kurogane family and Akaza, creates a scandal by photographing Stella and Ikki kissing on school grounds. Ikki later gets arrested and is placed in a special prison owned by the Kurogane family, where he is continually interrogated and forced to fight the selection matches, even while being imprisoned. Despite the odds against him, Ikki continues to win his matches. During one of his hearings, he appeals to speak to his father, which, to everyone's amazement, is granted. However, his father tells him to quit the selection process. If Ikki wins, he would cause unrest in his father's organization by inspiring those without magical ability to aim higher. Ikki is distraught that his father still refuses to acknowledge him. However, Yuri-sensei slips him a lock of Stella's hair, reminding him of his promise to fight Stella in the 7 Stars Sword Art Festival. The ethics committee informs Ikki that his final opponent in the selection matches will be Todo, and if he loses, he will have to give up his dream. Ikki's final match against Todo is to be televised to the whole world. Stella and Alice win their final matches and spots at the 7 Stars Battle Festival. Even though exhausted and wounded from his prior matches, and ill treatment in prison and haunted by self-doubt, Ikki arrives at the arena in time, cheered on by everyone at Hagen Academy. Todo, as well as everyone else, knows that the fight is fixed, but still wants to test Ikki's resolve to fight for the weak. He defeats Todo, shocking Akaza. Refusing to accept the outcome of the match, Akaza tries to attack Ikki, but Stella runs to his rescue and easily knocks off Akaza along the way. As Stella is near him, he proposes to her while it is still being broadcast to the entire world. Then, the Emperor of Vermilion telephones Ikki's father and suggests that their children should not be burdened by their parents' political goals. A ceremony is held honoring the school's 6 representatives for the 7 Star Sword Art Festival, and Ikki is named the leader and flag bearer by Todo. Ikki is later seen talking with Stella about his proposal, but before anything can happen, Shizuka and Alice arrive. Shizuka proceeds to create new rules to teach Stella how to become a bride, but this further enrages Stella, who believes some of the rules are made up, and retaliates with her own rules. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this, and I hope to see you in the next one.